What's up, Lou? How you do? What's up, everybody? We're gonna wait for some folks to hop on in here. Just a chill stream. What's up, Christy, Charles, Hebrew? What's up, buddy? Good to see you. Hey, Ghost Hunter gal. Hey, Cookie. How you doing this morning, ma'am? Just a beautiful Sunday here. I don't know what the weather's like down by you, Cookie. I know you're a couple hours south, but beautiful today. We're just gonna be chilling and chatting. I'll go over a couple of my cases that we're working on. Talk about that. Um, San Joaquin had reached out to Rice Crispy yesterday, and he said some people were contacting him, asking him about me. I've been kind of MIA, so I wanted to get in touch with the folks, let them know I'm not in jail. I haven't got ran over by a car. Yeah, we are still fighting corruption. There's actually a big investigation actually that we're involved with right now. Me and a couple other guys. We're going to be bringing all that to you folks pretty soon here, hopefully within the next few months. I haven't heard anything about the new Florida loitering law. Um, I'm not sure if that's an actual new loitering law or if you're talking about the Halo law where um, you can't be within a certain percentage of the, certain feet of the police or something of that nature. So we can talk about that as well. Also, if anybody wants to join up, let me get let me try to get an invite link here. Anybody wants to come up Sunday, chill, chat, all that good stuff. Hey, Mrs. Stephanie, good to see you. What do I think about Frauditor Troll being sued and deleting half his channel? I think that's hilarious. Audit them. You know I do, brother. And what's hilarious about it is that regardless if DMA wins or loses, the cost associated to Frauditor Troll is going to be it's beautiful, right? Every dollar he's made off us, off taking our videos, and just I'm all about fair use, and that's fine. And if you want to critique my work, go for it, absolutely. But there's a difference between critiquing someone's work or product or video, whatever you want to call it, and then just calling them stupid, right? Or, this guy's an idiot, right? That's not critiquing the work, right? Imagine if you watched a video of a movie reaction channel, right? And they were reviewing, I don't know, let's say, Mission Impossible, right? And the guy reviewing the movie was just like, "Oh, Tom Cruise is an idiot. Oh, this guy's a moron. This guy's a schmuck." You know what I mean? Like, where is the critique of the movie, right? Where is the critique of the video, right? Like, we know you don't like the people making the videos, right? And you think they're stupid and they're idiots, but where's the actual critique or criticism of the actual product? And I think that's what's gonna to hang him up majorly, right? Because he thinks he does all this commentary, right? But when it gets in front of a judge, I guarantee you the judge is not gonna consider calling someone an idiot as some kind of transformative commentary, right? Yeah, the goat is talking. What's up, our guy? Um, bu- 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 I'm not sure, Audit Them. You did used to be a mod. What happened is when I got hacked, when I got hacked, um, for some reason it's not letting me click on that. Oh, that's why, because I'm not signed into my account. I was trying to mod you on my laptop, but I'm not hooked up to my account on my laptop. So sorry about that, Audit Them. No, you didn't lose your mod, buddy. I mean, you did, but it wasn't because you did anything. It was I got hacked and everybody lost their mods, so I had to remod everybody. So, John Eagle, good to see you. So, yeah, I recently received the reply brief from the United States Attorney in the Social Security case. Me and Foshin both received the reply briefs for them in the Social Security case, and it's more of the same, right? Anybody that's interested, you can definitely email me. I'll be happy to email you a copy, um, so you can read it yourself. But it's a lot more of the same. But what strikes me as hilarious is the United States, the prosecutor was talking about how they had shown beyond a reasonable doubt that we were in a tenant space and that the sign was official, but literally they did absolutely none of that. Right? Having some guy come in who would, yeah, he is a manager there, but he didn't sign the lease. He has no clue what's on the lease. He doesn't know what part of the building is rentable but not usable, right? So there's a lot of issues with this. I don't have high hopes on the lawyer that the public defender for the appeal. Um, he put some interesting arguments forward, but I don't have high hopes that we're going to succeed, at least on his appeal. And so, what's going to have to happen after that is we are going to have to, or at least I will, and I'm sure Potion will probably as well. We're going to have to appeal it to the 11th Circuit. So that's probably going to be coming. Hopefully, they'll get to this case sometime within this next year. If DMA's case is any indication, it was about a year after they convicted and sentenced him that his appeal was heard by the district court. So if that's the case, then we're going to be looking at about a year to get that appeal heard. And then once that's done, I'll have to file an appeal with the 11th Circuit, which will then take another year, year and a half. So, for anybody that watches me that's thinking about getting involved in auditing, you definitely want to make sure that you have time, right? Because this is a very time intensive hobby, I guess you could say. And financially as well. Just so happens I'm doing a lot of this on my own or with public defenders because even public defenders can be good if they understand the issues, what's going on, right? Anybody can make a good argument in court if they have the right information and the right tools and stuff like that. So yeah, time to waste, exactly. um, So when I get a public defender, and I know it's like this for everybody. You get a public defender, the first thing they come to you and say is, "Oh, you should take a plea." And I tell them right off the bat, "Look, dude, I'm not looking for a plea. There's two outcomes of this case: either not guilty or they dismiss the charges, and I'll take it all the way to trial, like I did my felony. A lot of these other guys, they bitch out. Listen, I'm not scared of going to jail, going to prison. I'm not scared of any of this shit. So their intimidation factor drops to a big fat donut when I get in front of them. But I mean, this is what needs to happen. People need to fight it, and they also need to fight it using the right arguments. Um, my appeal in Georgia was lost, as you folks know, and again, my lawyer put forth the theory that was correct, and which was the fact that we have the right to record our officials in the course of their duties. But he then went on to cite Smith v. Cumming as the authority for that. And as those of you know that have read any of these cases, Smith v. Cumming doesn't necessarily give you the full weight, right? And so the courts have been dismissing it under Smith v. Cumming. But what we need to understand, and the argument that we need to put forth, is that we don't need any case law saying that we have a right to record our government officials. We don't need any case law, because the right to free press is that precedent, right? When they say, oh, you need precedent to prove that your rights were violated, the right to free press is the precedent. The right to free press is the court case, right? We need nothing else. I don't need a court case to say that Americans can own firearms. That's what the Second Amendment does, right? And I don't need case law saying that I can watch my government. That's what the right to free press is, right? You don't need a case law saying that troops can't be quartered in your house, right? Do you need a case law that says that, or does the Third Amendment cover that? So when we're arguing these things in court, we have to remember that we don't need case law. We don't need permission to record our government. That's what the First Amendment, the right to free press, is there for. It's already well established that every reasonable man should know, and when they violate that, that should be good enough. But coming into these cases with these, case laws that you heard, me and other people talk about, you need more, right? And you need to understand where it is you're coming from when you get into these issues. What's up, Cliff? Abrex, always one coming in with the person consent jurisdiction. I love it. I love it. We've had many conversations about that, though. So the bottom line is that if you live here, right, you have a home, or if your feet are planted on the ground, then you're subject to their jurisdiction. Even if you consider yourself a free man, even if you got paperwork that says that you're a free man, there's a lot of free men that live in America, free men and women. They're actually called stateless. That's their status in international law. And if you Google it, you'll find that there's about 3 to 4 million stateless people that live in the United States, but they're not free, right? Just because they owe no obligations to political entities based on their allegiance doesn't mean that they're free. And why is that? And it's because they're on the land of another sovereign. Do you think any man that's free can walk onto my property and do whatever the hell he wants? Absolutely not. I don't give a damn how free he thinks he is, or says he is, or believes he is, right? So when you're on another man's land, man or woman, in law, that means the same. So I'm not trying to exclude the ladies here, but in law, when the law says man, it means man and woman. So when you go on to the land of another, you will obey their laws, their rules. Doesn't matter how free you think you are, right? If you're a free man from Russia, you can't come over here to America and rape women, right? You can't come over here and steal. You can't come over here and smoke drugs and sell drugs to kids, right? Just because you're from Russia and you're not part of our society doesn't mean you got free reign to do whatever you want. So always remember that when you see the guys talking about how you can be free and if you're not a person and yada yada, ask them if they still have to obey the traffic laws. If they say they don't, tell them to come by, pick you up, and you want them to drive you by the floor, the state patrol sitting on the side of the road doing 120, and see how well their theory works in action. Okay. I guarantee while you sit in that passenger seat, you'll see them go to jail, right? And they'll be saying, I don't consent, and that's, it's not my jurisdiction. And their ass will still be in jail, right? And they'll say, like Abrix, traffic equals commerce. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. If you're driving a motor vehicle, which 99.9% of the people don't know the difference between an automobile or a motor vehicle or how to separate them or keep them separated. So 99.999999999999999% of people out there today drive motor vehicles. If your car's ever been registered, if you've bought a car from somebody else that's been registered, you're driving a motor vehicle. I don't care if you say you're free or you think you're free. I don't care if you took your driver's license and flushed it down the toilet or, you know, rolled your penis in purple ink and slapped it on your birth certificate and sent it to the Secretary of State. None of that shit matters, right? And none of them are going to prove it differently. They're not going to do it. Any thoughts on war with Iran? Not really audit them. I don't really keep up with the news cycles. Um, a lot of that stuff smoke and mirrors to get people to do this or do that. So, I mean, when I see bombs dropping around me, then shit got serious, and then I'll pay attention. But hey, Brax, you know where I'm at, buddy. Come by and pick me up, and we will. And I'll ride with you, and you can show me how you've beaten that. All right, buddy. All right, I'm waiting for you, buddy. I'll be here. Email me, get my contact info. We'll go for a drive, and then I'll document the court case because I do know how to get in the court and record the court cases. So we won't have any of the oh well they won't let you record because they're trying to hide the facts. That's not going to happen in this case. So whenever you're ready, Home Slice, contact me. We'll expose it together. You documented it for all to see. Okay, well, go ahead and email me that link, and I'll share it with all my subscribers. Because if you've got a way that's provable and can be tested by other people and produce the same results, then yes, we want to do that. 5 years ago, and you're not a multi-billionaire. I mean, how many people in the community are talking about the right to travel, and you've got the key, and you haven't been out there promoting it and selling it? That's suspect. What about giving it away? Who have you given it away to that has experienced the same? That's fine. You don't sell it. Who'd you given it to that has experienced the same results? I'm down with it. Share it for free. Absolutely. I don't agree with the guys that try to sell that freedom information anyway. But my point of the matter is this: who did you share it with that experienced the same results? Share it with me. PatriotDiscussions@gmail.com. Cookie or one of my other auditors, throw my email address in there so Abrax can share with me for free. We're going to test that out. See what's going on there. Again, anybody's welcome to come on up on the panel if you guys want to come on up. We talked a little bit about that Social Security case. You guys know where that's going to be at. With the Georgia case, my appeal was upheld by the Georgia Supreme Court. And now my next plan of attack there is a habeas corpus to the district court. That has to be filed within a year. I'll probably get that filed within the next month. And we'll go on from there. I'll keep you guys. Yeah, I know. We already met and discussed it. But you didn't have any proof then. No, we don't talk about that stuff, brother. That's a rabbit hole that people don't need to get involved with. I'm more than happy to discuss that with you privately, but if people are interested and trying to get their windows smashed, they can do that on their free time. Here, I want to talk about stuff that's written in law, black and white, that's provable, that's been able to be used time and time again, and doesn't have a long list of window smashes behind it. Frank, you ain't born. Abrams, come on up, buddy. We'll chat, buddy. Come on up. You got the link. I posted the link. Steph's got the link there. I'm posting it again. Come on up, buddy. We'll chit chat for a second, but only for a second. 6 Oaks, good to see you. I still am on probation in the Georgia case, 6 Oaks. My federal probation, Boshin told me that the federal probation ended the other day, but I'm thinking it might end on July 1st. But either way, federal probation is over. I've filled out all my reports. I've done all my requirements, which was just to fill out my reports. So, yeah, federal probation is over. State probation now won't be over until May of next year. However, um, I'm going to try after the summer to get off early. So the reason why people haven't been seeing me on YouTube a lot, posting others' videos, or even going out and doing my own videos is because I've been working a lot to try to save up some money to pay off these fines in order to get off probation early. Once I get off probation, I'll be back to work on the street again, full time. Yes, 6 Oaks. Yeah, the in custody requirement. Absolutely. Um, Usually, habeas is only for when you're in custody, but if you are serving a sentence of like probation, you are also considered quote unquote in custody. Um, so a habeas can be filed as well. So that's what I'll be doing. Um, and again, hold on to it. I don't know if I got somebody in the. Nope. Abex, you're more than welcome to come up, brother. We've got the link in there. You can come on up for a second. We'll chit chat about person so everybody can get a clear understanding of what person is. And then we'll continue on with the stuff. But until you get in here, and I don't know if you're in here because I'm on the StreamYards on my phone. So let me know when you do get in here. Okay, so that's the Georgia case. That's the Social Security case. And the Easley case, for those of you that have followed along, you know that I filed a lawsuit in Easley, South Carolina over the unconstitutional ordinance. They have since rewritten the ordinance, allowing us to record in the public areas, which is a big one for us, right? Even though they've included some tomfoolery in the language, which I've already talked with their lawyer about, and we will be addressing coming up further in the suit. Right now, we're in the discovery phase. So he has sent me his request for discovery and his interrogatories, and I've sent him mine. Those are due back to both of us, I believe, July 11th. Trial next Monday. Is Flex going to be there? I don't know about a trial next Monday. And I don't know if Flex is going to be there. Thanks, USA Badass. So, all right. Yeah. So we're in the discovery phase. And I am specifically requesting. Now, I don't know if everybody knows the whole story behind Easley. So we're going to go through it real quickly to bring everybody up to speed. A few years ago, a buddy of mine, and for those in the community that know him, Upstate SC News. He also has a channel for officer safety. He went to the city of Easley to audit, and he encountered the mayor, who was a real asshole, and the chief of police. And I shared his video on my channel, so if you didn't see it on his channel, you might have seen it on mine. But he was inside the city hall. The mayor was being an asshole, and so Skip called him an asshole. And the chief of police threw him out, trespassed him for calling the mayor an asshole. So Skip contacted me. We went back up to the city, And when we went inside to request records, they had the music playing. And then when we got in, they turned it up exceedingly loud, right? In an attempt to um, go ahead and try to make it so we couldn't record, right? Or if we did record, we couldn't monetize it. Again, these people have this concept of what I do based on what others do, right? So they think that playing music is going to get me to stop recording, right? Because, oh no, I can't make any money off it. Like that was my goal in the first place, right? So what they found out was Rogue doesn't roll like that. And Rogue rolled right up to the speaker and started singing along at the top of my voice because that's how Rogue rolls. And it pissed him off. And so at the same time, Mark Stout legalized drugs, who became the anti-frauditor, um, frauditors exposed, right? He had a big beef with LIA. He was sending out this memo telling cities that they could pass these ordinances to stop recording in City Hall. Well, they listened to Mark, and Stan, the chief of police, actually reached out to Mark in an email talking about me. And for those that haven't seen that email, it is on Frauditor Exposed community tab. And basically, he said, "Is who is this Rogue Nation guy?" And we kicked out his buddy, and he came up here, and he said that the town is under his watch now, and yada yada yada. I mean, you could tell this guy was really butthurt, and he was upset that I had taken it upon myself to make sure that the citizens of this town weren't being violated by these idiots. So he sent him this email, right? So now we have a public official colluding about legal information, legal advice with a and Mark's, he is what he is. He's a decent guy roundabout, you know, um, but he has no legal experience besides paralegal. He's a pro se litigant in his own right. He has won cases, so taking nothing away from him there. But in this instance, Mark's wrong, right? And we can all be wrong. It's something that we have to accept, right? We can't always be right. So in this one instance, Mark was wrong, and they followed his advice. So when we get in front of a court and they find out that the city is taking advice from an ex crack dealing ex convict, there might not be so inclined to think that the city was operating in good faith, right? So I reached out to them, the defense, a few months back, and I told them, I said, look, I want to settle this. We'll go ahead and settle this, rewrite the law, and give me 40,000 for the violations, the trouble, the violations, the loss of rights, and they're not going to give me any money. They said they don't believe that they've violated any rights. They don't believe that there's any loss or any injury. Now, understand that for 2 years, we were not allowed to go into the city buildings and record, do our investigations. And in that time, Butch, the mayor, has been outed and they have a new mayor. But the stories that we missed out on because of this fact were numerous. There were many stories that me and Skip were both working on. One having to do with Butch um, using a city vehicle that he wasn't entitled to. The city vehicle also had emergency lights um, connected to the vehicle, which was definitely not allowed. Another issue that was going on there was Butch was filling up his car and his wife's car at the public, pump. for the city cars. Another issue was, he was spending money irresponsibly, right? He had shirts made up with mayor on them. He wasn't authorized to do. He had an alarm system put into the mayor's office, not the city, not the whole city hall, just the mayor's office that he wasn't allowed to do. So there were a lot of stories that we missed out on, a lot of opportunities there. Um, so it baffles me and actually pissed me off that they said that there was no loss there. What's up, Toe? I'm checking out the comments here and there while I'm talking. I'm kind of dazing off trying to go through all this, guys. So I'm sorry if you guys asked any questions and I missed you guys. Ripple effect, always good. Central Florida, always a pleasure, guys. Oklahoma, Buzz, Snap. I mean, you guys are the steady crew. So thank you guys for coming in. I appreciate each and every one of you. If let me see, I haven't seen Abrax come in. So as soon as Abrax comes in, we'll go through some of his stuff that he wants to talk about. We won't take a long time. I do have a buddy coming over here today. We're going to do a cookout. Um, haven't seen them for a few years. So they're going to come over. We're going to do a cookout with them. So only got a little bit of time left, maybe half hour, hour at the most. And I want to get through information and just, connect with you guys. Like I said, it's been a while since I've been on. I don't want people to think that I'm not passionate about what I do or I've forgotten what it is that I'm about or my YouTube community. Um, but I just had to switch priorities for a second because first and foremost, I have to make sure that my family's taken care of, and second, I have to make sure that I'm in a good position in order to get back out there. So that's what I'm working on now. Because when I get back out there, I don't want no holds barred, right? I am going to be going about it a different way. I won't be taking arrests anymore. That's just not going to happen. Um, Taking these arrests has just crippled me financially. Um, and it's just not something that I'm going to do. It's not worth it to me. I can get the same results by not getting arrested. And for those that don't want to watch, that's fine because again, it's not about the money. Um, for those of you that don't know, I have started a new channel, Majorly Awesome. That's where I will be releasing my new audits. I've got 330 subscribers. It's not monetized, and I don't care if it ever gets monetized. To be honest, I don't care if I get over 1,000 subs. To be honest, because this is about work. It's about exposing these people that need exposed, and that's the bottom line. It's not about clicks and views. It's not about drama. Confrontation. Thanks, Oklahoma Outlaw. I appreciate it, man. You guys know that when I can, I'm here for each and every one of you. Anybody that's ever reached out to me knows that I'm probably the most contactable YouTuber out there. Um, and that's because my craft is about helping all of us, right? It's not about helping me. It's not about helping my bank account. It's not about helping, my own small community where I live, right? I'd go 8 hours out of my way to places I've never been before to make sure that those guys are treating American citizens the way they should be treated. Okay, you joined. All right, I'm gonna put you on. Hold on, buddy. Add the stage. All right, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. I can hear you as well.
How are you, George?
Yep.
Good. Hot day in Ocala today, huh?
I'm actually up at Gainesville. I
Oh, are
moved
you?
about. Yeah, I
Oh,
moved
you?
about 9.
Sorry. You
Yeah,
said you
no.
moved?
Yes, sir. I'm a
Oh,
little bit
okay.
north of Gainesville now. I'm actually right across the street from my buddy Wrights Crispy.
Oops. Oh, all right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I've
we're
seen you walking around with that guy. Yeah. So man, I mean, we talked to what did we meet for like 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. I
yeah,
thought we
yeah,
met for like about 3 hours. Yeah.
yeah.
Here's my thing, bro, is that, there's a lot of people out there that they believe in a legal process. And anybody who's done any research into this stuff knows that legal is not lawful. Those are two different things. Now, lawful can be legal, but that's based on consent. Nonetheless, I I would bet that not one of you has ever seen a valid state issued driver license from one of these people that you spoke with at a court, on the streets, in a government building. In fact, you never even require them to provide it. So how do you know that they're acting as public servants?
I mean, because they're public servants,
Says who?
their job title.
And who holds the title? The person holds the title. The all caps person that's typeset on the driver license that has a birth date and an address. But when you
Right.
deal with these people, you've never met them before, have you? When you go to a judge in Georgia, have you ever met him? Do you know who that man is?
No.
So how can you require a man that you have not identified, that has not identified themselves, to define their words if they won't even define themselves?
Well, listen, getting into the word games is not
Isn't
is
that
not gonna,
isn't isn't
it's
that what legalese is?
but
Isn't that what legalese is? That's a copyrighted language owned by the Bar Society that has
right,
taken over all of the positions in the court, and they
right,
act as unidentified persons. On your suits, I'll guarantee you, on every suit that I've seen, there is not a full legal name on that, or there will only be one full legal name. The other party will not have a full legal name. They'll put an initial. Can you go to the airport and tell them, my name is George S. Metz?
I mean, if
No.
my middle initial is S, yeah.
Okay, S as that ESS or just the initial S? They require full legal name. This is how they process the paperwork. They use the full legal name.
Right, right.
So if you never get a full legal name from somebody, how do you know who you're dealing with? How do you know that they are bound by any sort of statutes or codes or rules or anything? They can't be bound because they're not acting as the full legal name. They're telling you they're a judge, but they have no proof of it. They got a black dress on.
So how do you prove who's not a judge?
I would say, how do you prove who's not? The ones that don't provide their person. They have no identification. They have no legal right to do commerce on this land.
Okay, so in your opinion, because you've never seen any judge's identification,
I've
we have
required
no
it though.
judges.
I've required it.
We have no
Now,
judges in America, is what you're saying. There's no judges in America because they don't have an ID that they could show you that would comply with whatever requirement you're asking.
well, how do you act legally in this country? You have to have a birth certificate with an all caps person on it. Do you not? Can they
Um,
do they just let people from other countries come here and participate in legal commerce without a full legal name?
Absolutely. At the beginning of our country, every single person in our country didn't have a birth certificate.
That was then. This is now though.
So were they free men then?
What's that?
Were they free men then?
At that point, at some point, they became persons.
So
There's
they
no
weren't
more.
persons,
There's no
they
more
weren't
man.
persons,
They're
there weren't
persons. They're
persons,
legal entities.
so there weren't persons before birth certificates.
No,
Okay, so in the Constitution, when it says that slaves are 3/5 of a person, even though there weren't birth certificates then, what was that person?
Constitution is written in cursive. Cursive is a dead language. It's a running text that runs off the page. The Constitution doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
No,
What does exist?
man, and the words that we speak.
Do the words that we speak hold any weight, any value?
It depends on if you get the consent of another man.
How do
And
you get the?
that's the beauty of this. That's the beauty of this system. Everybody's against the system, right? But this system is built off of consent. You must consent to be the person, to act as the person in a legal situation.
Okay,
Otherwise,
now
you're acting as man under God's law, the
let me
Creator's
tell,
law.
let me
The
tell you
Creator's
how
law is
you.
not written. It's
Hold
written,
on.
or it's written on the heart of man, but that's it. There's no
Okay,
document that shows God's law, is
all
there?
right. Hang on, hang on.
I'm
We're
not.
gonna
I'm
let
not
me.
trying to be a jerk, bro. I'm just talking.
I know we're gonna let me speak though for a minute, but
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
okay. So what you're saying is, and I'll go through it real quickly. Is consent, right? we need consent in order to be subject to another man's laws, correct?
Another person's law.
Okay, so
Like
men
the
can't
United.
have,
Oh, I'm sorry.
can men have laws or only persons?
Sure, they can.
Okay,
Man can
so
have laws. Yes.
okay, so
But
let's
that
say
law
I'm
that man creates is the law of the person, because that's not the law that the creator created.
right. Hold on,
Man created that.
hold on. Let me just, like in a deposition, just give me like a yes or no answer. I don't want to go off on 5-minute answers because I'm trying to get to a point here real quick.
Okay.
So, all right. So basically, um, I'm a free man. Let's say I'm a free man. Rogue Nation, majorly awesome. I'm a free man, right? I own my property, allodial title. You come over to my property. Do you have to obey my law?
At that point, it's a negotiation. It's
If you
always a
step into my
negotiation. Everything's
if
a
you
negotiation.
if you step onto my property, do you have to obey my law? Yes or no?
Oh, no.
You okay? So you can just come on my property and shit in my dog's mouth.
If you're gonna let me, yeah.
What if I don't let you? What if I shoot you? Is that legal?
Well, that's
You're
part
on,
of the
you're on my
negotiation,
property,
right?
right?
That's part of the negotiation.
I'm
Those
not,
are bargaining chips, is what that is. That's a bargaining chip. If you pull out a
listen,
gun and I don't have one, and I want to shit in your dog's mouth, well, I don't know. That's probably not going to be too good of a bargain for me.
right. What I'm saying is, if some guy runs onto my property, I don't know him, he's shitting in my dog's mouth. If I shoot him, is that legal?
Is he causing you harm, loss, or injury?
Is he on my property?
Well, is it your property? Who did the creator give you the property?
Did the creator give you property?
The creator entitled me to use everything here when I came out of my mom's womb.
Did the creator entitle you to use my car?
Yes,
Okay.
everything here. But see, if I want to use your car and it's in your possession and you are able to protect that car, then I obviously have to negotiate with you. But see,
Okay.
here's the thing: if they can do whatever they want in the system, these quote unquote judges and the bar members, I'm going to say, then what do they need ID for? They could just take you right to jail. They don't even need your ID. They don't need to identify you. That's the man. That's his
Well,
face. He's done.
well,
We're taking him to jail. He broke my law. What I say is law.
right.
Why is there ID? Why is there any paperwork?
Well, because there's so many people now that you obviously have to be able to identify people. 5,000
Yes.
years ago, when there were 50 people, it was cool to be known as John of Lockley or
Yeah. All right.
Brad of Glastonbury, right? Because there was only one freaking Brad in Glastonbury, right? But now you've got
Sure.
500 Brads in Glastonbury. So Brad in Glastonbury doesn't really tell you shit, does it?
Yes, that's correct. So they came out with the surname, the thing that creepeth from below. That's something written in the Bible, right? It's the surname. It's a corporation, incorporation of the Christian name, the name that your mom and dad gave you, with a surname that nobody knows where it came from. I don't know where the surname my person carries came from. Do you? Where'd your surname come from?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know where my surname has come from because I haven't looked into it.
Or
But
anybody's?
basically,
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
actually, a lot of people know because, and I'll tell you how, because you can look it up. But a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of people, yeah, a lot of people's surnames came from occupations like blacksmith.
Okay,
Okay.
that's the idea of how it came about. But who actually took that surname and said, "This is our name"? Nobody knows because those people are dead. They're gone.
So do you think that the government just lottoed surnames, or did people pick their own surnames?
Either way, it was an incorporation. It was not a name that somebody gave. It was because there was 50 Johns from Glastonbury that the corporation of the government had to identify people. So they gave them a person to use, just like a car. The person is like a car. You can drive it wherever you want to. You can operate that car and go from point A to point B whenever you want to. God didn't. Did we come out of the womb with driver license?
Did you come
No,
out of the womb in a car?
no. No, I didn't.
Right.
I came out
So
with this body. That's it.
let me ask you this, because I remember we talked about this a while back. Where do you stay at? You're in America,
Uh,
right?
well, what do you mean? Where's the residence that I hold?
No, let's get rid of all the sovereign residence terms.
Well,
Where do you
words have meaning, right? I mean,
where do you rest your head at night?
I rest my head in Oviedo. In fact, that's where you were from, right?
I went to school out there. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, all right.
Yep. Oviedo.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. That's where I rest my head.
Did somebody force you to move there?
No,
You moved there of your own free will?
yes, sir.
Does Oviedo have laws that people that rest their head in Oviedo have to obey?
Oviedo has statutes and codes. There is no law. Statutes and codes.
Does the state of
That's all
Florida
there is.
does the state of Florida have statutes and codes that
Yes.
people that live in Florida have to obey? Okay.
Well, they don't have to. I don't think you have to. I think it has them.
You don't have to obey them? What happens if you don't obey them? Nothing? Like
Well,
you can go
you're gonna have a man. You're gonna have a man who's wearing a costume come to you and say that they have a right to enforce statute and code and that they have authority over your person. And they're gonna say, "Show me some driver license. I need to
Mhm.
identify you." And
Okay.
yeah, all right, that's what happens. But you know what? If you don't identify them, you're doing commerce, exchange. Commerce is an exchange. It's intercourse. It's Congress. These are all synonyms of commerce. Okay, you're doing commerce, legal commerce. That's what happens. And so that man, you're going to do commerce with the man that you have failed to identify. And you're going to consent tacitly to the jurisdiction or the law words that that man uses. Another man
You
is going to tell you what law is. You're not going to
don't,
consent to it. You're going to tacitly consent. You're not going to consent freely. And you're
you
not even
don't,
going to know what's happening because you don't even know who you're talking to.
all right, hang on. Let me get a word in here.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
You've already consented.
True.
Okay. You don't need to consent when
Says
you
who?
break the law.
Says
To
who?
be says who? Says
Yes.
society for thousands of years.
There's only one society, and that's the bar society. Do you have a card member or a card that you hold for the bar society? Because outside of that, that's the only society I'm aware of. Oh, what else is there? There's the what is it? The fellows, the Odd Fellows Society. There's lots of
Okay.
secret societies that have
Remember,
documents and charters
hold
and
on.
all of that stuff. But in terms of this general word society, there is no society. There is no forest. There's only a bunch of trees.
Okay, we're gonna mute you for a minute there because I'm trying to get a word in edgewise. I don't have a lot of time, and we could go through this for hours. So when you are born, we've already gone through this. I don't think he knows that he's muted. Um, when you're born, it's called domicile by birth. Okay, and again, this is where they get consent from, and this is where they've always got consent from. And a lot of people say, "Oh, you never got my consent." Looking at what society and the law has provided for thousands of years and ignoring it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Okay. And just because one person in the society says, well, I don't like it and that's not my consent, doesn't change the facts, right? Here's the facts. And you can dispute them if you want, but you'll be disputing them from prison, right? If you go and you rob a store, okay, you don't need ID. The cop is going to arrest you whether you have ID or not. You will be booked as John Doe. You will go to prison as John Doe. If you've never ever been identified, if your fingerprints are not on file, if your DNA is not on file, if you have no birth certificate, no social security card, if nobody knows who the fuck you are, you will do 10 years in prison as a fucking John Doe. Right? I'll unmute you so you can. Okay, there you go. Now, what do you think
So
about that?
So that's not freedom. What you're saying, you're saying you'll just go to jail no matter what, and they'll hold you as a person that
There
they
is
believe
no
you are.
freedom.
So why is there any IDs?
There is no freedom. Nobody is free. Nobody. Nobody's been free since men lived in the woods by themselves. right?
So what's the point of going to a court and paying money to a lawyer to interpret what law means for you? What's the point? It's
When
just a
when
waste of
you
time, right?
when you are in a society, okay, and I
What
say
society?
society, you're in the American society because
I've never
I
heard of
know.
that.
Okay, well, unless you studied anthropology and you realize that before there's a government in any given place, there's a society, right? It's not like one person hopped on a boat, came to America, and was like, "Poof, the United States of fucking America." That's not how governments are born. First, people move to an area, they create a society. Then that society, those society has rules. Every society does. The two basic rules of society: pay for the upkeep of society and obey the laws and rules of said society. Okay? That's the basic contract of two people living in an area
Contract.
together.
Contract. Yes,
Right.
that's a commercial term. Uh,
Right.
but
It's the social
also George,
contract.
with
Hold on.
words.
Let me finish. Let
Oh,
me
okay.
finish.
All right.
Not done. Now, once that society is formed, the people of that society, they get together and they say, what form of government is best to help this society? And then you have governments like America, or governments like England, or governments like North Korea. But before there's ever a government, there is a society of people. And that society decides what government should rule. Okay. And here in America, we had a society, right? It was actually a little bit different because we were colonies. So we already had a form of government when we got here, right? But at that Declaration of Independence, when we broke free, and if you read in the Declaration and the Articles of Confederation, not everybody was required to join in to the new America, right? As a matter of fact, colonists had a year to decide whether they wanted to be a part of America or if they wanted to go back to England. Okay? The
Yes, sir.
people that chose to stay here consented to being an American. They consented to the form of government. And every child that they've had after that, through the legal doctrine of domicile, has also been United States or American citizens and thus consenting to our form of government. Now, if they want to be free,
There you go.
they can leave the country and renounce their citizenship. Okay? But you can't stay in America, say that you're not a citizen, enjoy all the benefits that citizens have without obeying any of the laws.
Come on, George. Haven't you been paying attention? they You can't do that. What's been happening, bro? They let the borders get overrun by people that had no ID. They have no person. They left their person at the border, and those
But
people
they,
are getting benefits. They're drawing negotiable instruments from the government. They're getting health care. They're getting housing. They're getting phones. They don't have IDs. They didn't consent to anything. They're here.
when they enter upon our land, when your 2 feet are on our land, you consent to our jurisdiction.
Is
If
that
a
what you've seen
Russian,
happen
oh
over the
yeah,
last, what, 4 years? You've
let me
seen that
tell you
happen
how
over the last 4 years?
I've
I
seen it
haven't.
happen over my whole life here in Florida because we
That's
get tourists from all over the world, right? Tourists that aren't a part of our society and have not consented to obey our laws at all. And guess what? When they come to visit fucking Disney World and they break the law, guess where they fucking end up?
I say they consent to it though. I
How
say
do
they
they
consent
consent?
to it.
Did they
Be-
consent by being on our
Because
land?
no, because they're dealing with persons that they have failed to identify. They are subjecting themselves. And when you say government, I think control of the mind. I don't think of a building or some guy in a uniform or any of that. I think of
No,
control
because
of the mind. That's what government is. It's to
right,
control your mind, and they
the
control your
government,
mind via language. Okay, and who defines
absolutely.
that language? Who
I
who makes the definitions for the words that you use, George? that you
Well,
use, not me, but who makes your definitions for you?
the society that we live in. That's who
Make my
makes
own
the
definitions. I consent to the meaning of a word based off of my consent.
okay.
I don't just have if I walk up to you and I tell you that I'm God, are you just gonna be like, well, all right,
Yeah,
really? And you're gonna do what God
absolutely.
tells you to do.
No. Why would I
Exactly.
do
You're
that?
gonna have well, wouldn't you say prove it? If you're God, prove it. Prove it.
No.
I would.
I
If
mean,
somebody comes up to me and acts like a cop, and I've done it here in Florida already too, they get really upset because they don't want to identify themselves. Because when they act as unidentified persons, they are not bound by any legal statutes or codes or any of that. Their bar member buddies are going to interpret what law means for their benefit, not for yours. They're not going to.
okay.
They're not going to consent to a definition of a word with you. Uh,
Listen,
they're
listen.
gonna
There,
they're gonna
there's
use their own definitions out of the legalese dictionary,
okay.
which is not
Hang on.
English, right?
All right, let me speak. Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm not saying that I disagree with the premise of what you're saying, right? I'm a firm believer that they absolutely manipulate people with the law through the use of language and all that other stuff. What I'm trying to say is there is no way out of it.
I've done it, George. I did it
No,
at a
no,
small municipal court in Colorado, and I
are,
put
are,
the people
are
put
you
themselves in estoppel. You know what the word estoppel means, right? It means, in legalese, it means that one has given up their rights to complain at a court of law. Now, if you look at the formal definition per Edom
hold on,
Online of
hold
estoppel,
on.
that means cork. Now, what do you do with the cork? You plug something with the cork. Okay, you plug your own mouth. So when you fail to provide a material fact, i.e., a valid state issued driver license or other state issued identification, then you're committing an estoppel. You're concealing a material fact, which therefore voids any type of contract or anything that they're trying to do. They gave up. They gave
Okay,
up because they hid their identity. If everything is on the up and up here, why are they not identifying themselves? Why is the man not saying, I am this person, and as this person, I hold the title of judge or police officer or attorney or any of that? They don't do it. They won't do it because they know that they're fucking people over based off of our own ignorance, our own fear to identify somebody else when doing commerce. It's crazy, man. You ask a cop or require a cop to provide valid state issued ID, they're gonna lose their shit. They don't know what to do. They think they have rights or something to process you and use your property, your person. You're the only man that has the right to use that person. Okay, but they're going to use it how they want on their paperwork, and you've never identified them. That just I'm not saying you. I'm saying you in general. Um, uh, it seems pretty ridiculous to me for people who are so astute and into legalese and case law and all these procedures of courts and all this stuff to never once require the man that they're speaking to, man, woman, same thing, the never require them to identify themselves. I mean that's crazy to me.
I
Why
mean,
would I consent to definitions that a man uses that I don't even know who he is? He won't even define himself. Now, if you walk up to me and tell me, "Hey, I'm George Michael, and I'm man, and this is God's law," I'm gonna have to deal with that. That's not on paper. That's George has a gun. And he doesn't want me to shit in his dog's mouth. I'm gonna have to negotiate with that. Okay, but if a man walks up to me and has a uniform on with some all caps text on it, which is not English, it's not English, and they say I'm Sergeant so and so. Well, guess what? There is not a legal person that exists named Sergeant so and so. It never happened. You won't find a birth certificate on this land, in this corporation of the United States, that has Sergeant so and so or Judge so and so. You won't find it. It's a full legal name that's typeset in all caps.
right, right. Because what you're talking about is a person's profession. You won't see waiter George Metz on my birth certificate. Does that mean I'm not a fucking waiter?
Uh, yeah, you're not a person. You're a man. I've met you. I've sat next to you. You are a man. You're not a person. Neither am
So
I.
the cop in front of you, he's not a man.
He's not a person.
Is he a
He's man,
person?
he's man. He's man until he consents to act as his person.
Okay, so basically, what you're getting at is statuses.
Yes,
Every,
yes,
every,
perfect.
every
Yes,
yes, every society has statuses.
I agree.
It's facts, so it doesn't matter. Every
Do
society.
you know what I wish?
What's that, Tim?
I wish 5-speed could condense what he says and leave God out of it, and he would be epic. I'm sure you've met 5-speed.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll
But
condense it right now. I don't mean to interrupt. I'll condense it right
Yeah.
now in one sentence. ID, concealment, estoppel, full stop. That's it
Yeah.
right there. That's the whole method. That's the whole method.
So, but the reason is because the gold fringe on the flag, right?
Oh, the
It
maritime
doesn't.
admiralty. Yeah.
It doesn't matter how valid it is unless people understand it.
Yes.
It means nothing.
Hence
So,
government. Hence government. Hence
and I'm not
control of
trying
the
to be
mind.
disrespectful,
That
but
nobody knows this stuff.
what
Nobody.
you
I'll
guys are
guarantee you,
explaining right now is
nobody on the
fine and
internet
dandy.
is going to say what I'm saying. There's one
That's
guy.
why I try
There's
to.
one guy. He runs the Justinian Deception Channel. That man is in Australia. He knows. You know what they did to his buddy? His buddy didn't accept the person. They held his buddy in jail for 2 years until he consented to be the person.
Okay, so this
Isn't that
one.
strange?
So, and I know this may not seem like it's on topic, but I like to get right to the end of the conversation. I don't like all this. So I know it's Noli, nice to meet you. Met you in back chat there. Heard a
Good to
lot
meet you,
about you.
sir.
I'm 10th man. So I'm very well known. That's my new catchphrase. So
Tense as in TENTS or
no 10th 10th.
oh, okay.
So right now we're dealing with a world war. We're on the precipice of a world war, right?
Yep.
Based on one simple falsehood that there are rules of engagement for an occupied nation. There are not. International law specifically states that you are allowed to use any means necessary. There is no such thing as the T word or anything like that when you are occupied. You are allowed to use any means necessary. If you don't believe me, look it up. So, when the thing happened in October, they had every right to do what they did. And I am sick of all the ossification. We've all seen it millions of times with the police. And I had this argument up here a couple months ago. I think it was on here with Erie County, I believe it was. We were watching one of his videos, and he said, they don't know the law. And I don't know if he's come to the realization of what I was explaining to him, because he and I had a discussion about it. They know the law. All these cops, all these judges. You think that the people who, Harvey Freebird, for instance, I know he's fairly new, but I watch a lot of his stuff. You think those city councils and stuff, and that they don't know what they're doing is wrong? Yes, they do. They don't care. The same as in the Middle East. They don't care. You people are dealing with, when you go out there to these offices, you're dealing with sociopaths. You're dealing with monsters. These people want you to no longer have life because you hurt their feelings. They do not care. None of you, I do not believe that any of you actually truly understand how drastic this situation is. You guys all think it's this. Oh, if we just say, I thought so too. I thought if you just explain it to people in the right words and you say the right magic spell, then it'll be all right. No, they don't care. These are people that will take your life or watch your life taken for no reason whatsoever because of they got to be in their bonnet. That's it. So as I've been trying to tell people, I told Brian on High Impact the other day, you all need to be real careful now. We're at the end. We're at the end of the book.
Can I ask you a question?
You're going to see a lot of auditors get hemmed up just like Trump did. Because now the shoe's on the other foot. Trump is a monster. They're all monsters. We're dealing with multiple mafia families having a mafia war, and we're the bystanders. Anyway, go ahead. Yes, sir.
You used the word monster a couple times.
Yes, they're evil.
Well, in Black's Dictionary, the 4th edition, the word monster in legalese is defined as a man of prodigious birth who has no right to own land. Is that what you mean?
Yep. No.
Because my point
I'm
here
talking about literally a demon from mythology, from hell, that just wants to take your life so that they have the satisfaction of doing so. Nothing else.
Okay, and you're referencing the Rothschild state in the Middle East, right? The bankers that created the commerce system and control.
We're dealing with multiple mafias. These are all mafia families.
So do you think
this is the Sopranos
cultural
on a global scale? Pardon me?
Do you think this is just because of cultural differences, or
no? Why has nothing to do with any of that. All of that's an illusion.
I think it has
all
to
that's
do
an
with
illusion.
The commerce system has been proven to be fake, and they are upset. Now this may get a little bit of a trip, but this is why they injected graphene into people's veins, because they're moving the commerce system of currency into the blood currency. They're taking it out of the hands of men.
That's a screenshot.
Did I drop off? So I think that all this shit's happening because people are starting to open their eyes, see that the commerce system is fake, and that there are people, this matrix laid over what's natural, and that matrix is a legal system, and people realize how to use that, and now they're upset. They're going to start causing all kinds of shit and eliminating people because they want to keep their Ponzi scheme going. But see, people don't realize it's just like when you play chess. You're not the piece on the board. You're moving. You're man. You move the piece, just like the person. The person cannot move anywhere. The person can't buy an airplane ticket. The person is buying the airplane ticket, but the man carried it there and provided it to be used later by the other man who's going to take that and put it on a paper. Now,
all the stuff you're saying is great. Noli left. I would have. Noli, come back up here. I wanted you to. I didn't want to push you out. Please come back. You take over. I apologize, Noli. You could, if you would have said one word, I would have shut up. I always wanted to meet Noli.
My point here is that man is not a person. A person is an inanimate object. Man is not an inanimate object unless they consent to be. And in terms of the language that, like, say, George seems to be dealing with a lot of court stuff and all this stuff, but the documents that he's looking at have a mixture of legalese and English, and a mixture of all caps text and English. All caps text is not English, it's not French, it's not Spanish, it's not German. It's a road language. It's an artificial language that is meant to control the mind. Okay, now how do you there is no jurisdiction between two different languages on the same document, and that's in the Chicago Manual of Styles. Chicago Manual of Style. That's a book on the science of English. Now we use English here, right? If you look up in the federal government's style manual, it will show that English is the official language of the United States. But why do they use all caps? Why do they use legalese? Because nobody challenges them. You assume that the words they're using have a meaning that you're assuming. They're not telling you what that word means. They're not telling you that they're using two different languages on a document, and there is no jurisdiction. That document is null and void. Fraud vitiates all contracts. But people consent to it. You go through it and you say, oh, Like George, what were you saying, George? Domicile? Well, who defines that, George? Who knows what domicile means? Who says the meaning of that? A bar member. They interpret law for you. And you consent.
Yeah, people are starting to realize that now that
Now that's all fine and dandy if two men provide their person so that that person may be held liable for any violations of statute or code that that person commits. But if only one man provides the driver license, then guess what? It's free game. They'll use whatever words they want, and you'll never require them to provide you a definition or closure for the meaning of those words.
the judiciary and legal societies are the true evil in the world.
The
I've been
Temple
trying to
Bar.
explain that for a long time.
It's the Temple Bar, right?
Is-
From London, the 1 square mile of London. The Temple
They
Bar.
are private organizations.
Yes, I agree. I
that
like you, man.
society has no way to enforce anything on them whatsoever. And
I think the way to expose them is like what George said earlier. Is,
one second, government organizations, your senators and congressmen, they do not write the laws. They sign them. The judges, the lawyers write them, and the judges rule on them. Our government are literally puppets. And I don't mean puppets to rich people. I mean, they literally do not have a function. Our government does not have any legitimate function in society whatsoever. It is all not just controlled by the judiciary and legal societies. It is literally written by them. We follow their rules.
I don't.
And if you look into it, it says that the Supreme Court does not make its decisions based on law. It makes its decisions based on what the society will accept at the time. Not all of it is an illusion. None of this is real. Everything that you see in day-to-day society is an illusion.
I like that. That's great. I mean, I like what you're saying. But the fact remains that you can't act legally in this system unless you hold a person, a full legal name.
Right. Let's look. Noli had a specific reason. So go ahead, Noli. What's up?
Go on, Noli. I'm not hearing anything.
Dang, George. I really
Hold on.
appreciate you letting me come on and speak, brother. My wife is getting antsy, so that's the law for me. I got to negotiate that.
Just give us a minute there, buddy, because Noli specifically came up to talk to you, I believe.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, I know you probably don't know who I am, buddy. I don't know who you are either. You're probably famous, and I'm a tiny bit famous.
I'm not famous at all.
So I've been doing this for a really long time. I used to have my own show. I only do a couple shows a year now because I gave up after I got jabbed and got injured. I gave up on society. I believed, like I said there at the beginning, when I first came to YouTube, I said, there's got to be a way to convince these people, because I was under the false assumption that anybody could do anything and if they just put their mind to it, and we were all equal. And then over the past 6-7 years, I have come to realize that actually somewhere between 50 and 80% of people are NPCs and do not have the ability for even self-reflection. No, this is not a joke. They do not have the ability for self-reflection. They do not have the ability to understand anything. You can show them black and white right in front of their eyes. Like a couple weeks ago, I was on a smaller show. His name's OG Do Dirty. And there was this guy named Mayo Monkey, and we were watching a police interaction video, and I said to them, You guys do understand that we're going to start seeing people just fight the police on the streets now, right? This was less than 2 months ago. And the guy goes, no, it's not going to be any more out of the ordinary, blah, blah, blah. Literally in the past 6 weeks, I've seen 30 to 50 dudes just throwing down on the streets with cops. Bare knuckle boxing, don't give a fuck. People are done. And the guy goes, no, you don't know what you're talking about, Tense Man. It does. You can predict something's going to happen, have it happen, show them that it happened, and they'll still argue that you're wrong because they do not have the ability to see things.
Comprehend.
They don't have the ability.
Well, this means we're in a shitty situation, and I mean,
Yes.
well, you know, I don't know, man. I just think that if we're gonna play a legal game, a game of legal fiction, and I'm gonna agree to die and become an inanimate object, a person, then the man
Yes.
that I'm going to contract with, when I say contract, I mean shrink the meanings of words. I can say a word means anything, but I'm shrinking via contract on a document to a consent position with another person, another man who's going to become their person on paper, and we agree to the meanings of those words. That seems pretty simple to me.
Listen,
Because-
bro, if you've got Dan Bongino that literally had $1 billion corporation, okay, become whatever he is, like FBI deputy director, whatever it is, right? And for years previous, say, there's a lot we have to look into about this Epstein thing, and then he go live, whatever that interview was, 60 minutes or something, and say the words from the evidence that we have, he did it himself. And that the majority of society do not see that he's telling you, we don't have the evidence because they covered it up. There's no way we're going to be able to prove anything. They cleaned this up so well that even with the power that I have, I can't do anything. Right? And instead of people realizing that that's what he's saying, you got half the people saying that, oh, the deep state got him. The other half the people saying, oh, he's trying to do a, 4D chess, blah, blah, blah. No. Listen to his words. He's telling you right to your face. You're so stupid, you can't even hear what he's saying to your face. So there's no way to win this fight because the majority of people out there are too I get what you're saying. I'm not discounting what you're saying about language. We are dealing with a majority population of complete and utter imbeciles. They will do what their master tells them. That's it.
Hey guys, I mean, I really appreciate for my wife was going to get pissed off.
Noli's back.
Right, go
What's up,
ahead,
Noli?
Yep, I'm back. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Wasn't sure because, my phone's just being stupid.
So Noli, buddy, who I think you wanted to talk to, has very limited time. His wife is giving him dirty looks. So take the floor.
Sorry,
Take the floor.
I honestly fucking no longer remember what I wanted to say to you, man. Other than the fact that I think we're getting fat and old together. It's been a while. I haven't seen you in a long ass time.
Oh, that's fine. She was talking to me.
You're breaking up.
Yeah, how have you been, Noli?
I'm
Like,
doing
dang,
good. I'm doing good.
Yeah, we're
I'm
losing
already
you,
fat.
buddy.
How
We're
do I get more
losing you.
fat?
Yeah.
I'm doing good. I've been busier than shit. Looking forward to hopefully Eric coming home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we're all hoping for that.
Reception.
Have you guys seen the documentary yet?
No, we haven't.
Brandon, go
Wrights
to your room.
Crispy-
Go to your room right
Yeah.
now.
Wrights Crispy was telling me about it. He had Eric on the phone the other day, and I got to say hey to him, but I haven't seen the documentary yet.
Is that your fucking goat in that picture?
It's actually my sister-in-law's goat.
Oh, I want a fucking goat.
Oh,
Yeah.
George, thank you for letting me come on, brother, and speak. I really appreciate it, and I'll be watching your channel, brother.
Of course, buddy. I'm always here, man. And you know, we'll talk more.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. You have a good day.
You too, sir.
Bye.
Bye.
Did you finish your court case?
No, I mean, sort of. I got convicted on two of them, and I'm still fighting them in the appeals processes, that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
And then,
So you've gone through it. You're appealing their bullshit.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. It's wild how they can just literally sit there and violate bench book and everything else and just do what they want.
Oh yeah.
Just because they happen to be the ruler of the kingdom inside that room, that little fucking room that you're shoved in.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
wild.
No, absolutely. That's the the problem that I wanted to highlight, but again, this is why I won't be taking arrests anymore, is because I've already highlighted it. Like I keep telling people, they're like, oh, you got convicted, and they did you dirty, and all this other stuff. And I told them, I
We
said,
all know that.
right. I told them, I said, if I thought that I could have a just outcome, and that these people would treat me fairly and obey
There'd
the
be no
law,
point in doing it.
I would have never had to pick up a camera, right? I never
Yep.
would have picked up a camera if I thought for 1 second that these people would follow the law and do what's right, right? Then I would have never picked up a camera. So
Yeah,
the
there
the
would have been
the,
no point in picking up a camera. There would have been no point in doing any of that because they would be doing what is expected of them.
exactly. So it doesn't come as a surprise to me that they misuse statutes to convict me, and they've misapplied laws to convict me. None of that surprises me. I'm not sitting over here going, "Oh man, I got convicted. I never saw that coming." That's not me. So, that's the reason why I do, what I do. But I've already proven that. So, me taking arrests is a non sequitur, I guess you could say. It's not going to happen unless there's going to be some egotistical cop that you can't stop, which of course is always going to be the case. But I mean, sitting inside these buildings arguing with these idiots for 20 minutes until the cops show up and arrest us for trespassing, that's not going to happen anymore.
Well, that's why I told Brian on High Impact there that, and he said, I just wanted to get it out to you auditors and stuff, is if you plan on taking this stuff to court, do what you're told and file the lawsuit for breach of your rights after you leave that they told you to. Don't take the ride. If you don't have the money and you don't actually plan on fighting this, just walk away.
Yep.
Don't because you're making good auditors look bad when you mess up, and I get it. It's not easy, right? Like I've done a bit of this myself too.
Right.
But you got to be a little bit smarter. You're not all San Joaquin with millions of dollars and your own corporations. And he's actually made me mad now too, but I'll deal with that on my own, not up here, right? Because I started watching some of his videos from a year ago there yesterday, and I'm like, you seem to change your mind a bit, but whatever. I was going to say, I forget what I was going to say now. I'm a bit high. It's Sunday.
Do you guys remember Javier Escueta, the cop in Juliet, Illinois, that whistle blew on the Eric Lurie case?
No.
Okay, well, he's the whistleblower who exposed the Eric Lurie case by getting his hands on the footage of what they did to him and giving it to a member of the press and saying, you need to get this out there because they're trying to hide this shit. And he ended up getting fired, and then he ended up getting prosecuted, and they were trying to sentence him to 20 years in prison for a policy violation. Something that anybody else, it would have gotten them maybe a half a day of desk duty or a half a day without pay or with pay. Like
Do you remember what they did to that receptionist
he didn't break
lady?
a law. He didn't break a law, but what they did is they took that policy and they twisted the words of it and like made it run made it sound similar to a law. So that they could press charges against him. Well, he has been found innocent and all charges have been dropped all charges have been dropped. He went to court and they were just like, nope, we're dropping this. So after like 5 years of torturing this man and putting him and his family through a nightmare and a half, they've dropped the case and he is now pursuing a civil suit. And he's like, I have no interest in being a cop ever again. He honestly, I don't think he truly realized how bad it really was. And I don't think he realized that he was kind of starting to go that way too in certain
Hell, it
ways.
happens to you, right?
What's that?
Hell, it happens to you. Back the blue until it happens to you. That's the way that it's
I didn't hear
time
the
and time
blue part.
Back the blue until it happens to you.
Amen to that.
Anyway, go ahead. She has
But yeah,
issues.
so
with
I
her
just thought
sound.
I'd fill you guys in on that if you didn't know about it or if you weren't aware. We got to protect our whistleblowers, especially cops and people that work in DA's offices and in local small governments and shit. Those whistleblowers need to be protected because they are going ham on them right now. Not just in the courtroom, but like, there was that one cop who died there in California. Well, he was in training, and it was because he whistle blew on 2 or 3 other cops, and those 3 cops that he whistle blew on were the only ones around when he died. But it was just an accident.
So yeah, what I was going to say there a minute ago. Have any of you guys seen the deposition? Because I just looked it up. Here's the deal. Not high impact anymore, I guess. He did a highlight of the Jeff Gray incident where the cop said he was going to get him for vagrancy, and then they got the deposition of the male cop that said he was going to get him for vagrancy and all this stuff. Have you guys seen that? Where 80% of his answers are "I don't know" and "I don't recall" to things that he obviously should know, and his answer was "I'm tired." Like, that's the people that we're dealing with. They know. They're willing to perjure themselves because they believe that it's okay for them to lie, cheat, steal, and murder. That's what we're dealing with here.
That's of course.
Hello there, Noli, 10th man. Rogue, if you're still on, long time no see.
Hi, Hebrew. It's good to hear your voice.
Roger that. I'm just out in the middle of nowhere surfing the Ethernet, and then I come upon a show called the Rogue Nation.
That's what I was. Well, actually, I was working. I'm in the middle of finishing up a graphic novel that will be out like in 2 weeks, but I'm trying to get like the last minute edits in there.
Nice. Okay.
I'll be excited to read it.
Well, yeah, it'll be an interesting read, that is for sure. And what I'd like to bring to the table at this current time period is that by listening to a multitude of different shows in different countries and different languages and expressing theory in order to come up with a solution is great and all, but I'm not hearing solution methods pertaining to the subjects. And
I don't think there is honestly a solution other than
well, there is
living
a
their lives. I really don't see it because man, the deck is stacked against us on every fucking level. And there are so
absolutely.
many people who still will back the blue, will back the government, will believe whatever their politician says, and will think that the judges are all going to do the right thing because they're all impartial. We know that's impossible. Shit like that.
Well, it's
People who
understandable.
honestly think that, Karen Reed was guilty. Like, are you kidding me? How? That
Okay,
shit
well,
don't even make sense.
It's understandable to interpret that the deck is stacked against us. That's an obvious truth. And the angle of approach that I use in these methods is I took a little tidbit from my grandfather who was a Holocaust survivor, and he expressed to me, fuck the system, pimp it backwards. Okay.
I like your grandpa. He's cool as fuck.
Okay, so let's utilize the codified law to our benefit to make a change, because we have in codified law the recommendation of altering or abolishing the government. Okay. Now, we can't outright abolish it, because then at that point we would have anarchy. We would have the strongest pirate cove would take over. So we can't go that route. But what we can do is
it would take an act of Congress to do anything, and they're not going to do shit.
Not necessarily. So what it could be done as, and what I try to express if people are paying attention to the comments that I'm putting in these different chats, is the first comment I'll make mention is run for office. Okay. Now we can use these laws to make the alteration. We can alter the government. And it's not a theory, it's not speculation, it's actual proof of. Rogue Nation, he can vouch. I was a county commissioner in one of the most corrupt counties in Florida. Okay, so I was able to get into this position.
Was that Polk County?
No, that was Taylor County.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so coming from Miami, Carroll City, coming out way out into the middle of nowhere, being not related to anybody, any business related circles in that county, and becoming a county commissioner. Thus, the end result is putting a state attorney in federal prison, 2 of his assistants, the county attorney south of us, and then having a school principal being filed charges against. Okay, and the current investigation going on with the sheriff, even though it's a prolonged investigation, I doubt anything will happen with that. He's well insulated. But at least I was able to get 33 sheriffs to resign, 33 deputies in one day. So when I hear people say, we can't make a difference, we can't change anything, there's nothing we could do, I beg to differ. I beg to differ.
You're going to have to, we're going to have to sit down and talk about that one of these days. I'm curious.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely right. And Hebrew's a great guy. He really is. But now let's go over this, because since you've and those 33 deputies got fired, who do you think they hired in their place?
Right, exactly. So I wasn't concerned about who left. I was concerned about who stayed. You see what I'm saying? Who stayed during the process? Who was being sheltered under the wing of corruption in that phase? And that's what was able to isolate and to have a more acute measure in the investigations of the 3-letter agencies into that protocol. So it actually helped us. It helped us to get all these open investigations open, because the first series of getting elected, getting into that position, and then reviewing the records uninterrupted. I'm walking around the metal detectors now. I don't need an appointment. You understand what I'm saying? So I've got the keys to the castle.
Right. And that worked in your case, Hebrew. And you're a very likable guy. So there's no way that anybody's going to elect me. Right.
But that's what I thought too. But that's what I thought too as well. You know what I mean? At one time, I thought Who am I? I can't make a difference. I'm not from here. I don't know anybody. You know what I mean? So I thought like that as well until it actually happened.
Well, right, but okay, let's take my resume for example. Two-time
Mhm.
felon,
Well,
anti-government.
yeah.
Right? I mean, I get plastered. They're gonna decimate me in the polls and the press, right?
Yeah, but how many felonies was Trump convicted of?
Well, I
Well,
understand, but he's got a lot more media presence than I will ever have, right? And
You're one of the
so,
most well-respected auditors out there.
well, I appreciate that, but again, we're living in a small niche, right? Like,
No, you're really not.
I wish it
no,
wasn't true, but it is.
Millions.
Right, millions might have seen my video, but I've seen millions of videos, and I don't remember any of those folks I've watched. Right? Like,
Yeah, but you're but that's because you're no. You do you understand that there for every one of us that comes up here to talk to you, there's 10,000 that don't have the confidence to?
well, I wish that wasn't the case because I like to talk to everybody.
No, I'm saying
sure. And
these
that's a
people
crucial.
line up behind you because, like me, you're the voice for the people who don't have a voice.
Well, the collaboration of minds through a think tank builds encouragement for people who have the self-doubt. So let's say, for instance, your example, Rogue, of being the convicted felon and not being able legally to obtain those measures, right? But being a part of a think tank, there is no law that says I cannot, if I'm an active county commissioner, I cannot consult with a felon. There is no law. So I can include you in the measure as being a part of a think tank, right? So
And
we
and I totally back people that are freedom minded, like you and like James McLennis when he ran for sheriff in Pinellas. But it's so few and far between. Let me give you an example. A couple of years ago, out in Sumter County, and I don't know if you're familiar Hebrew, but Sumter County is a big part of the Villages.
right.
Or the Villages are a big part of Sumter County. So, and I'm sure it's no, no mystery that the county commissioners out there are in the pockets of the developers.
Naturally.
So, right. So a couple of years ago, you had two candidates that came up and they wanted to clean up the county, and they ended up getting elected. And it was 3-2, or wait a minute, it was 2-3. And the developers went and they had some dinners with the three new, Congress committee, whatever, council members. One of them switched sides because obviously the developer was in their pocket, and the two other gentlemen did not. Well, a couple of months go by, and these two gentlemen are now under investigation because they quote unquote were having conversations outside of city council, which is not supposed to be allowed.
Right. So under the Sunshine Act, if two or more public elected officials are meeting on any level, they have to notify the public in advance in 24 hours.
Right. So basically what happened is because there were more people that were corrupt than the two people that weren't corrupt, they ended up getting the two people that weren't corrupt kicked off the council and now into some legal trouble. And that's a pattern I've noticed multiple times when somebody with good intentions tries to go in and change the system. And I equate it to this, Hebrew. I equate it to somebody trying to join the Hells Angels and turning it into a knitting club.
Right. And that's understandable. But then we also look at the infiltrator, right? Said agent that infiltrates the Hells Angels and ends up building a case, right? So again, the angle of approach is very important when dealing with the government. Now, mind you, the example that I would use that had happened to me, I noticed the purses of money, the women, the drugs, everything that was related to the subjects to attempt to entice me into these measures. But I knew prehand not to even take a cup of coffee from anybody. Okay. So the understanding of getting involved, first of all, you have to think like a criminal. Don't act like a criminal, but you must think like a criminal so you don't become a victim. Okay. You got to understand the psychology of crime. So therefore, it's a defense mechanism once you get into those positions, right? And I saw it clearly, inviting to lunches and dinners and X, Y, and Z, and I refused it all. Why? Because under the RICO statutes, you're guilty by association. You don't even have to commit a crime. You just have to be associated with the criminals to be convicted under the RICO Act. Okay? So I'm very aware of that portion
Hammer,
as well.
did you ever be able to sit down with the police officers and actually have conversations with them?
Absolutely, absolutely. I sat with the sheriff's department, with the jailers, with the hospital, because the county had care, custody, and control over the hospital contracts. The road department guys. I did 10 ride-alongs accruing 140 hours. Okay, and I did the 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. ride during the witching hour. So yes, I sat down with every department head, every worker related to the county, delegating a $36 million budget, being in charge of $107 million worth of tangible assets. So yeah, I went in depth with it with the short time I had.
Okay, so you were able to do that as a commissioner, but do you know how hard it is for a citizen to have a conversation with a police officer outside of being arrested or being pulled over or anything else?
Yes, it's a difficult measure. And at one time, before being a county commissioner, I had to go through a thought process, meaning that how am I going to explain to the federal government that I got a bunch of dead deputies in my front yard? How am I going to explain this? Okay. And it would be next to impossible to do so. So I better do something quick. I better formulate what's called a coup d'etat, legally and lawfully conducting a coup prescribed by the Constitution. My campaign expenditure rate consisted of $3.60. That's all I spent to become a county commissioner. You can do it. That's why I tell people, run for office if you are legally able to do so. Yes, I understand the complexities involved. Being a citizen, how do you approach and redress your grievances to the government? That's why the Constitution is written the way it is, so we can explore those avenues.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've had conversations with a few police officers. One of them's even related to me. And it's like, as soon as you start talking anything, they cut you off. They don't want to talk about it. And it's like, for you to be able, for a citizen to understand what's in the mind of police officers, it's like you're cut off and you can't get into that door.
Right. Well, it's intentionally compartmentalized because that is not the angle of approach. You understand what I'm saying? If you need to know anything about a police officer, you file a FOIA request on his employment history.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about knowing something about a police officer. I'm talking about just having a conversation about, different things that have gone on and their view on it and all this stuff. And most of the time you'll get this statement as, I don't know, I wasn't involved, so I really don't know the circumstances.
Yeah. Right. There's a common generic response across the board that isolates or separates the citizen and the police. And that's part of their training process. Has anybody ever, just for shits and giggles, has anybody ever applied to law enforcement just to go through the motions and have an understanding of what is going on and what's being taught? I did. I did 264 hours to become a correction officer. I didn't want to become a correction officer, but I wanted to know the inside language. You understand what I'm saying? I never became a correction officer, but I got accredited. I went through the coursing and the classing to understand the language. That way in the future, if I do approach, I can understand the language, right? And so
I had applied as a jailer, but I didn't have any law background or anything, no training like what you're saying you went through.
Right. So it was just to ascertain the information of that language. That way I knew how to approach them. Same thing by being in the military. In a sense where I was in a foreign service, I was in the Israeli Defense Force. So the teaching methods and the language is a little different of the applications in the U.S. military, different set of laws. But at the same time, if we can pool all of our knowledge and the wisdom to decipher these knowledge intakes, we can make a better place for ourselves. We can absolutely do it. I was astonished what I achieved as a county commissioner. I never thought I was going to be able to produce those type of results until I did it.
And my uncle used to say, you can take the best guy in the neighborhood and make him dog catcher, and within a week he'll be the worst SOB.
Right. Okay, so
Yeah.
now the intention that is in your heart before you get involved, what direction is your moral compass? Do you even have a moral compass? Okay, so when people get into these positions, either A, their moral compass is obtuse and they're getting in there for nefarious reasons, selfish, whatever, clandestine, whatever it may be. Okay, so their intention before they even get in there is evil. But then you have people who have good intentions that get in there but don't understand the complexities involved and become victimized by it. So they go along just to get along. Very rarely, a minute fraction of society actually gets in and makes a producible result. It's very rare, but it can happen.
Yeah, I think a part of a police officer who has good intentions to get into it is not to be afraid of being fired, because I think that's where it gets held over their head. I drive around in the county that I live in, and I see all these county police cars sitting at these real nice houses where they've got this camper, they've got this side by side, they've got all these toys. I'm going, that guy is half my age. Where did he get it from? All he's done has been a county officer. And
Right, it makes you,
to look at it and say, where did they get it from? Rogue knows where I live. And it's just like, to talk to those officers and just have a man-to-man conversation. I have found one officer that will actually talk to me. And as we're talking, they'll say something. I'll come back with something else for them to think about. One of the conversations we had was about a driver's license being a privilege in the state I live in. I said, wait a minute. Constitutionally, the driver's license is not a privilege. I said, that driver's license, that actual card, I own because I had to pay to get it. They didn't just hand it out to me. If they handed it out to me, it's a privilege. I'm allowing them to give me a card, and that's where our country has gone backwards. I think the year was 1930 was the last time that something was brought up about driver's license, and it actually being a commercial license.
Well, right.
That you have the right to travel.
Well, again, the privilege isn't the card. The privilege is using the motor vehicle in commerce, right? That's the privilege, right? Because we don't own automobiles because we register them with the state, okay? It's a lot more complicated than people think. It's not just, oh, this is my car and I could do whatever I want with it. There's title law that's involved. There's property law that's involved. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's involved that people that get involved in the right to travel movement like to confirmation bias away, just like the people in the tax protester movement like to confirmation bias stuff away, right? So the reason I tell people not to get involved with this stuff is real simple. One, and unless you know exactly how the brain works, confirmation bias, normalcy bias, all this stuff works, you're just going to end up fooling yourself. You're going to get in trouble, as all the videos on YouTube have proven time and time and time and time and time again, right? So that's number one. Number two, if you're smart enough to successfully figure this out, then your life will consist of getting pulled over, having your car impounded, and going to court, because they ain't smart enough to comprehend it, no matter how well you explain it, right? So it's a moot point. I've already looked at all those sovereign ideologies, like Abrex was talking about. He told you that we had met a few years ago. We met in person about 5 years ago, and I sat down and explained to him why it wouldn't work then. And it's the same thing today, right? In a society, people cannot be free. We owe obligations to each other. Okay, it's just the way it is, right?
I understand all of that, but on the other side of it, when you're looking at the the right to travel, and I'm not saying I'm one of those, and I'm not, but I look at it as, when an officer says to me that this is a privilege, no, I pay taxes to use the roads. I paid gas tax. I pay tire tax. I pay a sales tax on everything that has to do with using the roads. Now, if I want to walk down that road, do I pay a tax? No. Why not?
So
No,
when you
it's not you that's being regulated. You're
right,
not listening.
exactly
It's
right. It's not the individual that's being regulated. It's being okay. So when you look at the right of freedom to travel, okay, expressed in that implication, it does not say how. It doesn't codify how you have the right to travel by airplane, by walk, by boat. It doesn't express how. That's just like the freedom or the right to pursuit of happiness. You have the right to the pursuit of happiness, but you're not guaranteed happiness. So the same thing applies for the freedom of travel. It doesn't say freedom of travel and then a subsection B through Z or whatever that says right to the vehicle, right to horse and buggy, right to airplane, right to pedestrian walk. It doesn't say that. It doesn't express that. So yes, you have the freedom of travel, but it doesn't expressly imply how you have the freedom of travel, by what means. So if we want to be members of a society and belong to a republic, having voting and tax-paying constituency, we have to enter to an agreement to be able to live in this country. And part of that agreement is having a driver's license, having insurance, having the right to freedom to petition your government for redress of grievance, but it doesn't express how. The only constitutional amendment that gives you the expression of how is the Second Amendment.
right.
That's the only one.
Right, and you're absolutely right. But to clarify, and just so people know, the again, the right to travel is not a or the driver's license and the motor vehicle and stuff. That is a regulation of the item and not the person. Okay, and again, it happens through title law, because we take private property. Okay, when you buy a vehicle. And again, you can't buy a vehicle through financing, right? Because then you're getting third parties involved. So if you wanted to experience the right to travel, this is the exact way that you would have to go about it to even stand a minute chance of having it succeed. Okay, you would have to go to the car dealership and buy a new car. You would have to pay for it in cash. Okay, you would then have to request that dealership provide you with the manufacturer's certificate of origin or the manufacturer's statement of origin, whichever they're calling it. Okay, then you would not take that to the state and register it or license it or send that in. You would hold on to that. That would be your title. Okay, then that vehicle is considered an automobile. Okay, private property. You can find the definition of automobile in a lot of cases dealing with estates and such as that, right? Under the UCC code, and I've got all that as well when I did my research for that. But what happens is once you register that vehicle, that automobile, and you provide that registration to the state, okay, they now become an interested party, okay? That automobile now in law becomes a motor vehicle, which is subject to regulation, okay? And again, if you know title law, you can understand this, because in title law, there's going to be two different titles: equitable title and legal title. And equitable title allows you the use and the possession, and if you sell the item, you get over and above whatever's owed on the item, right? That's equitable title. You get the use of the item, the possession of the item, and if you sell the item, you get over and above whatever's owed on the item. Okay, you own equitable title. Legal title is the title that allows you to make the rules for the item, right? So now that you know that, understand which title you have. Do you have the use of the item? Do you have the possession of the item? If you sell the item, do you get over and above what the item is worth? Yes, you have equitable title. Or do you make the rules for the item? Do you say that blinkers have to work? Do you say that whoever's using this item needs a driver's license? Whoever's using this item needs insurance. If you're making those rules, you have the legal title. Okay, so what happens in title law is you have a perfect title, one that has equitable and legal. And when you give that to a third party, like the state, they split the title.
Correct.
You then do equitable, they then keep the legal title. And that item can never, ever revert back to being an automobile. One reason is because they take the title, the manufacturer certificate of origin, statement of origin, and they photocopy that and they microfilm that and then they destroy that, because in title law, only the original is going to be correct. All right. So now you know, knowing's half the battle, but knowing this is never going to do you any good, because nobody else knows this, including most of the judges, most of the police, most of the prosecutors. Nobody's going to understand that. And to explain that is going to waste your life. So
Right.
get a fucking driver's license, pay the fucking fee, and fucking enjoy the 50,000 hours of not being in court explaining something to idiots.
Right.
You're welcome.
So
Agree.
and you're absolutely right with that measure, right? So let's say, for instance, that's codified law, right? And for whatever reason, we may not like the law, agree with the law, or want to abide by that portion of the law. By approaching it in the angle to make the claim, I'm a sovereign citizen, I don't need to do this. That's not a defense mechanism in a court of law. If you don't like the law, petition the government to amend or change or strike the law. You understand what I'm saying? That's the method that you have to go through in order to make the change, or run for office and file the bill yourself in that measure. So by saying, I don't need a driver's license, and you're getting pulled over for the rest of your life, well, you have no defense mechanism in place to remedy your solution. So therefore, it doesn't work. And when I explain to people that...
Hold on. You've said a lot, sir. And I've been sitting here telling off the people in my game for critiquing my speech and telling me that I don't have free speech while I'm listening to you. And you're saying all the right stuff, right? You're saying all the right words, right? But I want you to explain to me, when you have government agents at every level, that you pretty much have to get a case to the Supreme Court to have them held responsible. How anything that you're saying has any applicability to the average citizen. It does not, right? So I'm going to hold back. I'm going to hold back the million insulting things that I want to say to you, because I don't even know you, right? But I'm not your average bear.
You do now. You do now. And we are average citizens, because I wasn't born.
No, I'm not. I'm
right?
not an average
So
citizen.
therefore, we have prescribed remedies by law on how to approach
No, no,
the
no, no, no.
government.
What you have, sir, is you have a bunch of rules that were made up a long time ago, a lot of them, by people that
It's
don't even, hold on. By people who
called
don't
codified
even exist.
law,
No, sir, by people who don't even exist anymore for the most part. Okay.
but it's still codified law.
And then a bunch of sovereign citizens who have immunity from the same laws as the citizens need to follow.
Cite
And
me a
then you're
statute. Cite me a statute that
those
supports your theory.
citizens. No, see what I'm
Cite a
trying to tell you
statute that
is
supports your theory.
law is not real. I know you
Law is codified.
believe it is. No, it's a magic spell.
I know it is.
It's a
I
magic
have
spell by
written
private
law.
organizations.
I have amended law. I have stricken
Yes,
law
yes,
as a
dude.
Yes, it's
What
codified
do you
law.
freaking
Until you
do?
get
And with the stroke of a pen, that can all be reversed. Stop it. I understand you
exactly,
might
'cause
believe
I've done it.
you may believe the lie, but the
No,
majority of
it's
us
not
out
a
there
lie.
do
It's called
not.
codified law. It's called codified law.
The
It's called
trouble is,
It's
bullshit.
not a
It's
lie.
no
It's
different
not a
than a fucking.
theory.
Why do you
It's
think
not
my avatar
fabrication.
is the magic book of spells and potions? For
I'm
that
not
specific reason,
agreeing with
that
the
there is no
methods.
difference between
I'm
your
not
law book
liking
and the
the
book on my
methods.
avatar. There is no
Okay.
difference between your law book and the book on my avatar. No difference.
Okay. I may not
Zero.
agree with these laws. I may not like these laws, but they are
What
codified law.
you
And
like
if I
and
want to make
feel
a
are
change in the codified
irrelevant.
law, you
Address
have
what
to
I
file
just
the
said.
petition.
Address what I just said. What more validity does your law book have than the book on my avatar, the witch's book of potions and spells? Tell me
The
why yours
validity,
is more legitimate.
Hold on.
the validity and the tangible relations is if you drive without a driver's license and you get pulled over, you will go to jail.
That's not an
Do I
answer to my
like it?
question.
No.
That's not an
Do
answer
I
to my
understand?
question. No.
That's rude.
Listen, I just
Maybe not to
finished
you.
listening to Mehdi Hassan. Sir, before I came up here, I just finished listening to Mehdi Hassan completely decimate that former Israeli diplomat guy. All right? And you are a very, very similar type of mentality. You obfuscate and you do not answer questions. Tell me how your law book has more validity than my magic book that's on my avatar right now. Tell me how it does.
Because your fantasy is not codified law.
Your law is fantasy
That's
because
the
if
basic.
only
That's the
certain
basic
segments of
element.
the society have to be beholden
You're
to
not.
those laws, then it is
You're
not a
not.
real thing.
You're not absorbing what I'm telling you.
Hold
You're
on,
just
guys.
not absorbing what I'm telling you.
I'm about to snap. I'm about to snap, Rogue.
I'm I'm about
No,
to
because I've been
snap
listening
too.
to him talk all this time while I'm arguing with other people and telling them, listen, bitches, I'm
Okay,
about to
let me
leave
ask
your
you.
clan
So let
because
me
I've
ask
had
you a
about
question.
enough of your fucking nonsense. And I just finished
Let
listening
me
to an
ask you a
Israeli guy
question.
explain how the
So I'm an
extinction of an
American.
entire populace is okay. And then this guy coming up here with the exact same mentality and saying,
I
oh,
am an
I used to be with the
American, third
IDF. And I'm not
generation.
supposed
That's
to
right.
hear what you're saying?
I
Are we
can't
not
help it
supposed
if
to
you
hear
have
the words you're
assassinated
saying?
because you hate Jews. I can't help that. What I'm trying to say is that
No, what I'm
in
trying to
order
say
to
is
make a
you are
change
what
in
I
this
said people
society,
are before you came up here. You're the evil I was talking about.
see, you don't
You
even know me, but you
specifically.
call me evil. You've never sat
Because
across the table from me and
I
broke
hear how you
bread,
talk.
and you call me
I
evil.
hear how
You know
you
what?
talk.
I can reciprocate in the manner.
You
I
are
can reciprocate in
asking
the same
people
manner.
to bow
If you want
down
to
to
resort to these
tyranny.
methods, no, I'm not. You're not hearing what I'm saying. You're obviously not hearing what I'm saying. You're in an echo chamber and you
You
want to
didn't
hear
hear what Rogue
yourself.
said. You didn't
I
hear what
absolutely
Rogue
heard what
said.
you said.
Instead, you've been on a 15 to 20-minute tirade about, oh, it's just so easy to fix the world. No, it's not. And you're lying to
Yes, it
people,
is.
and
It's
you know
easier
you're
than you
lying to
think.
people. You are
It's
lying,
easier
and you
than you
know you
think.
are.
Show me one mathematical equation. What result have you produced in your life? Have you ever
No,
changed the law? Have you ever
you're
amended the law?
lying.
How many petitions have you filed,
That's not what we're
sir?
discussing.
Oh, it exactly
That's
is
not.
what we're discussing. We're talking
Yes, I've
about
done
holding
many
the
things. That's
government
what I mean.
accountable, and
You
you
don't know who I
produce
am.
nothing.
A lot of
Nothing.
these people do.
Listen,
What have you
I know,
produced, sir?
I know who both of you guys are, and I like both of you guys. And listen, this is what I know to be true. I've gone past the time I was supposed to on my live stream, and I'm cutting this shit off. But before I go, I had a question up here from Cammed Up Caveman that I wanted to get to. So please let me address that, and then we'll be getting out of here, guys. I do enjoy a spirited debate, and I do, appreciate different points of view, of course, from everybody. And to address 10th specifically, your question about the books, and I'll keep it short, and I don't need a reply. You could think about it and get back to me because, as always, we always talk. So the validity of the law book versus your spell book. The validity of the law book comes from the people, right? It's supposedly. Now, again, this is the theory, right? This is what they tell us. This is the theory. The theory goes is that society are beholden to the people that make the laws, right? That's what makes a good society. We agree to be a part of the society, and we also agree that the laws that are made to supposedly, again, in our benefit, for the benefit of the public, we're supposed to obey those laws, right? And so that is where codified law comes from, compared to, just the spell book that anybody could get from the library. Now, for example, if society came together and said, you know what, this spell book works a lot fucking better than the US code, so let's do the spell book instead, then that spell book would have the validity that the law book has now. But when you're living in a society, especially one like ours, mine and yours, because in both countries, I do believe that we are free to leave the country whenever we want, right? We're able to move to Russia or, Jamaica or wherever we want, Mexico. And thus we can leave that society. So if we disagree with the laws and the direction of the country or whatever, we are then free to, become an expat and join a society where the laws are more to our liking. And that's where the consent part comes into. That's where the validity of the laws come into. If I don't like the laws here in Florida, I can move to Wisconsin. And if I don't like the laws in Wisconsin, I can move to California. And if I don't like the laws in any of the states, I could move to Mexico, or I can move to Ecuador.
Right.
This is my point.
Having the remedy available to you, the multiple angles of approach. If you don't like it, you can move, or you can amend the law, you can petition, you can run for office, you can make that change. And Rogue, again, you know who both these parties are. You sat and talked about this. Hold on, sir. I let you talk uninterrupted. Allow me to finish, please. Okay.
All right.
When I tried to express to people mathematical equations that have producible, tangible, registered results in the Library of Congress forever, sir, okay, what I have done for society is conducted a coup through the government prescribed by law to make changes for the benefit of society. And for someone to call me evil for doing so, then I'm going to reciprocate in the manner to say that.
I heard all the exact same arguments about the lockdowns and the masks, bro. All the exact same stuff you're saying.
I didn't vote for any of that.
Don't matter. Your same justification was used for that.
Listen, I love you guys. I love both of you. You guys got great opinions on both sides. But listen, I got to go. We don't have time to continue this. Not a Cammed Up, bro.
All right, bro. Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
I love you guys. I mean, both of you bring excellent opinions, and I know you guys don't know each other and probably don't get along, and that's fine with me, because I love both of you guys equally. So listen, Cammed Up Caveman, if you manufacture your own vehicle, when you buy the parts with like a kit car, usually the two parts that come together, the engine and the frame, both of them will have a certificate of origin or statement of origin with those pieces. And again, a lot of people that do build those kit cars will then take those and then turn them into the state in order to get a license plate. And that's what usually happens. But if you do buy your own kit car and you build it and you keep those manufacturer's statement of origin, then that is your private property. And then again, they would have to have a warrant to take it and whatnot, such as that. But again, this information does people absolutely no good. because
Nah, bro.
the,
I
the, the
watched a lady get arrested in a wheelchair for driving down the road. Stop it.
no, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's impossible to use this information. Years ago, 50, 75 years ago, this information would have set you free, right? And would have kept you free. But now, no way. There's no way in hell.
That's right.
Most people don't realize that South Dakota was the last state to get driver's licenses, and they didn't get driver's licenses until 1955. So, when people say, "Oh, well, you can't drive without a license," well, do you think people in South Dakota didn't buy cars until 1955? I mean, they realized cars were invented in the early 1900s, right? And they realized that there's pictures in towns of South Dakota before 1955 where the streets were full of cars, right? And people driving them had no licenses, right? And they probably realized that people in South Dakota might have went on vacation, right? They might have driven those cars across country, maybe to California even, and they had no license. So, yeah, there's that. And with that said, I'd like to wish everybody a farewell, and I hope this Sunday is blessed for everybody. It's a beautiful day where I am. I hope it's a beautiful day where you are. And those that are watching later, I hope it's a beautiful day or night or whatever hits your fancy. And we'll be seeing you guys again shortly. We'll be back on the schedule, putting out some stuff. So
Roger that. Y'all take care.
Thanks again, guys. No, only find out how to end the stream.